Okay, we're live.
Hello.
Oh, we finally made it. Only 14 minutes late today.
We're doing good.
We're doing good. But anyway, we are here today to talk about the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was my book choice for book club this time. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
You know, I was really trying to lean into my enjoyment of Grady Hendrix books with this one, and this had been on my TBR for a long time, and I was really excited to read it. Don't know if I'm happy I read it after.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It is. Yeah.
It is, because I liked it.
I thought for sure that we were going to come in here and I was going to be like, you know, I didn't really like this one. You'd be like, yeah, no, I didn't like it either. I thought we were going to agree.
I actually did like this one. I mean, it was no 5-star read, don't get me wrong, but I liked it more than the other two. Definitely. Quite a bit more.
This one's a little bit more disturbing, Kelly. Like,
maybe that's it.
I think so.
It was a bit disturbing.
You're on a T Kingfisher run over here.
I kind of am.
That's a bit disturbing.
Well,
What Moves the Dead was.
That was much more disturbing actually than I think this one was. But no, I mean, I did actually liked it. I'm not going to turn into a Grady Hendrix fan at this point, but
Still on the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this book was better put together than the other two that I've read. So I enjoyed that because that was my main complaint, especially with my best friend's exorcism.
Yeah, the plot holes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there were still problems here, but on the whole, I liked it much better than like those other two. So I was happy with it. Give it 4 stars. It's your book, though. You start out. Let's talk about it.
I know. All right, so this book, let me see. It is about this group of Southern women who form a book club so they can read their true crime books, which ladies after my own heart, that's for sure. But if you ask their husbands, it's not a book club and they're there for Bible study.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really awesome. But yeah, so they form a book club and they're reading their true crime novels, and then some really crazy events happen to one of the members in particular, and it leads her to believe that her newest neighbor, James Harris, might just be not human, but a vampire. And so she has to try and figure out how to convince other people, either in her book club or just her husband, that, you know, James Harris is one that you need to watch out for, because she put together that he was starting to attack some children out in the poor communities outside of town, and she was really concerned about her own children's safety, and so she tries to convince everyone else that there's something not quite right with him, and doesn't really work.
It doesn't go well.
It doesn't go well at all. Like,
it doesn't go well for Patricia.
Yeah, no, poor Patricia. But yeah, so eventually she is able to convince the book club, though, her book club, that something is wrong with James, and they take care of business.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I was very shocked at how they handled all of that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's not quite what I was expecting, but yeah, the end there was, that's when it got gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, it was pretty tame, but it got pretty gnarly at the end.
I mean, I didn't mind the end so much. I thought the worst scene was like earlier on when she was in the attic.
Well, yeah.
That was the worst scene ever.
Yeah, that wasn't, yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty much the whole of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is. It is. I really did think it was going to be more campy than it was.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it might be like a Southern twist on a group of ladies that turn vampire slayers. You know?
That's
a little more badass.
That's what I was wanting.
Me too.
Like, I really wanted to be just like you know, they go up to some vampire nest and just like look at the leader, be like, "Oh, bless your heart."
Yeah.
You know, like just
Yeah.
take them out like that.
A little campier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was not it at all.
Mm-mm.
At all. So it was much more serious toned, but it had obviously, you know, this group of ladies went after a vampire, so there's some camp in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really did have a darker, more serious tone than I was expecting it to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more kind of manipulation and more what you might consider realistic consequences.
Yeah.
For like Patricia, especially, Patricia was the main character. I mean, she got slammed.
Yeah.
Bad. Real bad.
More than once.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did, that wasn't what I was expecting, but there were no Southernisms, really. But considering the characters and the kind of area, the world that he set up, it probably would have been in poor taste to talk like that for these ladies.
Probably so.
A little
They were
tacky.
very high class.
Yeah, it would have been a little tacky for them to speak that way. But I kind of thought maybe Mrs. Green would pop off a few.
Right, yeah.
Or Miss Mary. She kind of did. The way when she was talking about telling, Miss Mary was Patricia's mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
When she was telling Patricia about Hoyt.
Yeah.
And that whole thing. Pretty interesting. She kind of turned Trailer Park Southern. They were a little bit, for lack of anything.
I mean, maybe that's just how she always was, because she did come from a small town, and so just as she was older and they moved out.
I mean, it did.
It's hard. You can take the girl out the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the girl.
Well, and I don't think she ever did, really, because it talked about that her family was very poor, dirt poor, and she worked her butt off to send her kids to college and make sure that they got out. I don't think she ever really did.
Yeah.
Get out.
Not until she was older and she had to go work with one of her sons.
Yeah. So, but no, I think if it wasn't going to be what I wanted it to be, but I think that it did a good job of what it was, which was very much a social commentary on that period, the early 90s in the South, and talking about the racism and the classism and the misogyny and all of that. Now, obviously, it was overblown because it was all satire.
Right.
So it was well overblown, but I think for being a satire on that time and that area, it was really good. It was really good. I hated a lot of people in this book.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Really did.
Yeah.
Really did.
I started writing them down, like, as I was reading, like, oh, I hate this one, I hate this one, and I just gave up, because there were just too many of them.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Which, Carter was my least favorite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
100%. This was Patricia's husband, Carter.
Mm-hmm. He's a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, oh, I'm the professional, let me handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, but it was funny because like every time he did that, it would blow up in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And he just was like confused. He just didn't understand.
Yeah. Like, maybe you should see a psychiatrist.
It was kind of funny when that would happen. But yeah, he was a manipulative dick.
He was terrible.
He really was
so
bad.
Terrible. Like, I was so happy when she asked him for a divorce.
Yeah, I know.
Like, towards the end of the book, I'm like, I don't know why you didn't do this sooner, sweetheart. Like, you should have done this, like, years ago.
Yeah. Well, and then that whole speech that he gave when they sat the kids down.
Yes, and was talking about
and he was like,
their divorce, and about, like, how your mom's the one that's going to move out because this is her decision. and
Yeah, and
like,
she won't have a lot of money, so she won't be able to provide a very nice house for you, or they'll
Yeah.
probably only have one car, so you won't be able to do this. And he's like talking like he's keeping everything, and I'm like, dude, seriously? I wish it had gone more into that.
I wish that
Took him to the cleaners.
Yes, I would have loved
But
that so much.
Anyway, yeah, they still. And then he was like, "Now, who do you want to live with?" And they were
They
like,
both said mom. And I was also like a little bit shocked, but
well, I was too, because that was one of the parts that I think he could have done better. Is talked about the kids, because the kids' characters were pretty shallow.
yeah.
And I think, considering how much of an impact the kids had on Patricia,
Well, and
and
how involved they were with James as well.
yes, James was the vampire.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, I think he could have done a little better about
Yeah.
fleshing out the kids, because they were just like screaming, angry, hissy teenagers, and they just got in fights all the time, but yet there was never any discussions. And yeah, so at the end, it was like, well, okay, I'm surprised they didn't just stay with Carter just so they could stay in there, not because they wanted to be with him,
Right.
but
so they stay home, and they'd have the house to themselves most of the time,
Yeah.
because he would travel for work now.
yeah,
He had
And
to do whatever he
so-
wanted with whoever he wanted.
I think it would have been better to flesh the kids out a little more, so that Patricia could have had a better understanding of where her kids were coming from, especially Blue.
Yeah.
Blue is her son, and it started off that he had like this fascination with World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could tell over time, as James became more of an influence on Blue, he was really going dark, like icky dark.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, Patricia, by that point, wasn't really allowed to parent. But then Carter would get all mad at her because, why aren't you taking care of this?
Right.
But every time she tried, Carter would undermine her every time, because he's the professional.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to know, like from Blue, where that was coming from, or Patricia would at least try and talk to him about, why do you like this stuff?
Right.
Why,
Yeah.
Or for at least Blue to maybe come out and, I don't know.
They kind of like,
It was weird.
It was weird, because they knew that it was like not something that he really probably should be focusing on so much, but they didn't do a whole lot to try and stop
No.
his obsession with it.
No.
Because being like wanting to know a lot about World War II was great and all, but his main thing was for Hitler and the Nazis.
The Nazis and
and
experiments on the Jews and the Holocaust part of it.
that was what he was focused on, and like he was even started to do these experiments on dolls or whatever.
Yeah.
He was trying to recreate them.
And mutilated some action figures that he had.
Mm,
Yeah.
like if I saw my kid doing that, I'd be worried.
Yes. See, I didn't understand why that whole progression happened, because it did not play into the story at all.
No, just like one day he was just like, wanting to know a lot about things, and the next he's just like full blown, your kid's a serial killer kind of level,
Yeah.
Like, so
And I mean,
flip somewhere.
I think it was, of course, it was to show James's influence on him, but there was never really a reason for it to get to that point.
Right. They also didn't like really say or show how much they hung out. Like, there would be times where he'd be like, yeah, I went over to James's.
Yeah.
But it was thrown in a way as the reader, you should already know that they're spending all of their time together.
Yeah,
James and Blue. But
really hanging out a lot.
They didn't really talk about it.
No, it didn't. So I think the kids could have been a lot more.
And Corey too. Like, what's happening with her and James? Like,
yeah,
that threw me for a loop. That was
me too.
Completely out of left field.
Me too. It was, because at least I didn't pick up on any signs prior to that.
No, because Corey was mean to him from the beginning.
Yep.
And then it was pretty much, they never really had many interactions after that.
Mm-mm.
So I would think that, if you're going to have a grown man coming in to your bedroom at night and doing these things to you, then
Yeah.
you
Well,
might.
the only clue to it was that James said that Corey had come to him. So, but there was nothing. I mean,
Doesn't make sense. So why she would come to
There
him
was-
though either?
no. I mean, there
Because
was
like
nothing.
I said, like she acted like she hated him,
yeah,
or at least
so,
very much did not like him.
yeah.
So
that was a shock.
that was, and that was just weird. The whole scene was just weird.
It was.
When I read
It
it,
was.
that was very disturbing to me because I'm like, this is a grown ass man and she is a teenager.
Well, it wasn't like it was an actual relationship. I mean, he was a predator.
Yeah, but I don't.
He was a predator.
The way that they described it, though, just like I don't know, like I don't know, it was just weird because obviously, like he described it as like, granted, it was from James's perspective, so he's saying like she wants this.
Yeah.
And she enjoys this, and she came to me for this.
Yeah. Well,
So that was kind of
Patricia described it later on as an addiction.
Mhm.
That, which kind of in vampire lore, if you're under their influence, if you're a thrall, then you do.
Yeah.
You do want that addiction. They're whatever. So they weren't having sex.
No, they weren't. Sorry,
that wasn't the thing. But yeah,
they both were naked.
Well, and I never understood why that had to happen.
I don't know that either. I don't know if he was trying to like keep blood off of his clothes.
I don't know, because the way he wasn't like a vampire. Really.
Not in the typical sense. Like
no,
if there were some things that definitely were different about.
Yeah, it talked about this thing that would come out of his mouth like a.
I looked it up. There was like
a long tongue or something.
What did they call it? It was like a started with a P. She called it that, but it pretty much when I googled what the word meant, it was like looked like the nose of one of those monkeys, like the really long circular noses. If you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
That's what. That's the word they used to describe it, and so that's what came out of his mouth.
Well, yeah, something would come out of his mouth, but I didn't get. I think there were still bite marks, and then this thing. The way James described it was like dialysis. Yeah. He had a blood condition that required him to circulate his blood through someone else to purify his blood. That's what he called it. Mm-hmm. He wasn't drinking their blood. Right. He was just cycling it through to cleanse his own blood. So I don't know if
Which would explain why they got so sick, all of his victims, because if you're going to have all of that poisonous stuff going through you, then...
Yeah. So this thing, I don't know. Once he bit them, this thing embedded. Because they also described that when he would kind of unlatch, there would be blood everywhere. Like blood would gush out.
Yeah, because when he was ripped off of them.
Yeah.
Then that was when it was like really bad.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was really weird. So, but he would bite on the very top of their inner thigh. Mm-hmm. So, while it was not sex, it was
close.
It was definitely a sexual connotation to it, or implication to it, and except for Slick.
Yeah,
Slick was one of the women in the book club, and he actually raped her.
Yeah, 100% did, and
sorry for no trigger warning for that, but
that also came out of left field for me. I didn't expect that to happen. Like, I thought it was weird.
It didn't surprise me that it happened, but I did not see it coming. But once Patricia was there and trying to help take care of Slick, the way it came out, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I got it. But Patricia had gotten... There was this whole thing where Patricia in the beginning had convinced her book club that, he was a drug dealer, that he was dealing drugs, because she had seen him in the woods. He had a white van, and she had seen him in this van with a little girl that had been known to be acting strange, like the other kids. 6 Mile was the place. It was a black community, a poor black community, and so he was preying on these black children because they knew nobody would care.
Yeah, like
basically
8, 9-year-olds.
Yeah, and so after they called him Boo Daddy.
Mm-hmm. I like that though.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool.
Yeah, and so the kids would talk about like a boogeyman. Mm-hmm. That he would lure them into the trees and do something. So first she thought he was a child molester. Yeah. But anyway, through events, she's out in the woods and she finds him in the back of his van with this little girl who had been acting strangely before. And anyway, she got her whole book club to go on this because she told them drugs. Because they said that these marks, they found the girl, there was marks on the girl that looked like track marks. Mm-hmm. And so they were all riled up, and it just totally backfired on Patricia. She ends up in a mental hospital.
It was so bad. I was so mad reading that part.
Me too.
I could not believe these husbands. Like, I forgot my notes at home, but I wrote in my notebook, I remember writing this, that I would have divorced every single one of them right then and there.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was very much, your girls, they kept calling them girls.
Yeah, you silly girls. Those books have gone to your heads, and now you're making all of this up, and you bored housewives have nothing better to do, and just talking down to them like they were naive little girls.
Mm-hmm. And this is the point that the women found out that their husbands had become friends with James, and he had been charming them, going to the club and having drinks with them, and had invested in one of the husband's business. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't know that their husbands were in quite so deep with James. So anyway, Patricia took the brunt of that. And anyway, she ended up in a mental hospital because her husband's a psychiatrist, and he just knew something was wrong with her. Her imagination was... Her mind was just terrible.
Yeah, and he treated her so poorly.
He did.
While she was in there, because he was up for some big promotion or something at work, and the fact that she went into a mental hospital during his whole thing at work, we're trying to decide whether or not he's going to get the promotion.
Selection process.
Yeah. So she goes in the mental hospital, and they tell him that, I think we're going to expand our search because, you might have some things to take care of at home.
You need to be home.
Yeah. And so he legit just threw that in her face about how, I lost my promotion because of you and your stupid antics. And then he brought in the kids and had turned the kids against her pretty much. And was just being like, look at what you did to our children.
And and had her tied down.
Yeah.
So that when the children came in, she would be in bed, tied down to the bed.
Yeah.
That pissed me off royally.
You think that her son finding her seizing on the floor is going to traumatize a kid. Seeing your mom strapped to a bed in a mental hospital is going to traumatize both. Yeah. Even more.
That's where I was like, he was so manipulative. But at the same time, that particular part did not ring true to Carter for me. Because through the rest of the book, I thought Carter was just stupid. Quite frankly.
No,
I didn't think he was that devious.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought so for sure.
I didn't think he was. I really thought he was like a disconnected, that he manipulated because he was the man. He was the husband. And he was in charge. And he did not think much of Patricia. No. And so the way he would talk to her was really in a disrespectful, it was coming out that he did not think much of her. But that devious little, I am going to set the stage here. I'm actually setting a scene. That seemed a little too far for what I thought Carter, because Carter just did not seem like very smart to me. And somebody that devious could not figure out that James was just messing with them all.
Well,
I don't know. But that one didn't.
James is a man.
Well, I know.
Why
But if
would
Carter's that devious, how did he not pick up that James was a scammer? I don't get, and a psychiatrist to boot. Now the other guys, absolutely, I can see what they were all dumb.
all of them were so dumb?
All of them were stupid.
Oh my god!
And the one, Kitty's husband, he was just drunk all the time, so it didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know. They were all dumb.
I don't think Carter wanted to see it. He wasn't out searching for it. He was just focused on his job and screwing around with other women. So
yeah, and James just gave him.
He gave him ample opportunity.
More of what he wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. He helped boost his career, helped him travel, and helped him hide the fact that he was with all these women. So it's like, why would he?
He didn't hide it though. Well, these women kept calling the house.
Yeah,
Patricia knew.
Well, that was but like later when James, because that was earlier on.
Well, that was after the 3 years. Because there was because he didn't start traveling until after that. Because
I thought that
because because the whole thing with Patricia and that ended. Remember, he wanted her on Prozac, and she tried to overdose on Prozac. That's why she ended up in the mental hospital. Mm-hmm. And at that point, that's when he lost the promotion, and then it skipped 3 years. Mm-hmm. So it was during that 3 years that James ingratiated himself and got then that job. So when it came back at the 3 years later, that's when he was already out, and that's when Patricia talked about the women who would call, but she never said anything because
she would just tell him to call his office.
Yeah, okay. She was always afraid to say anything because every time she did, Carter would say, "Is your imagination getting the best of you again?" And so she wouldn't say anything because she was scared to.
Yeah, at that point though, like, what was his whole reason for staying in that marriage?
Well, Patricia talked about it later on, or maybe it was Grace that said it. We keep their homes. We raise their children. We, they go off and do whatever they want, and they know that they can come home and kick their feet up and be king of the castle. And if they didn't, they'd have to pay a maid.
And childcare.
And the thing was that I appreciated myself. I spent, what did I tell you? We were talking about this last weekend. I was a stay-at-home mom. So when my first son was 8 months old, I quit my job to stay home. And I did not go back to work until my youngest son started kindergarten. So, what did I say, 7, 8 years?
Mm-hmm.
I was a stay-at-home mom. So, I could possibly relate just a bit. Not that my husband has ever treated me like the husbands in this book ever did. Because trust me, he wouldn't have survived it. But Patricia would always talk down about it. Oh, we're just housewives. Oh, we're just. And Grace Kavanaugh, which I loved her, by the way, because she would always be like on the phone, Patricia, Grace Kavanaugh here.
Yeah.
I loved her.
She was very typical Southern woman for me.
Yeah.
Like when I think of a Southern housewife or whatever, she is who I think of.
Yeah. But Grace would always tell Patricia, why do you do that? Why do you talk about it like it's nothing? Why do you say that all of the work that we put in, the taking care and the running errands and the cleaning and the cooking and all of, why do you act like it's nothing? And I was just like, and that's probably why I like Grace quite a bit. I really thought Grace would be the one to really kick ass in the end, though. I mean, she did. At the very, very end, she did. But
I thought she was going to join in sooner because,
I did too.
Being a housewife and taking care of the kids is her thing.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure if anyone was going to threaten her or her children, then
just the way her character was set up, I just really thought she would be the badass. Yeah. She was a no nonsense.
Right. Like she would honestly it would have been like a little bit of a surprise that she would have been so badass about it.
I wish she had been.
Yeah, I wish.
I really liked her a lot, but she was very traditional, and she was very content and proud of her life. And her husband was a jackass who hit her, And she was older than the rest of them, so she was a bit more conditioned to the lifestyle, maybe. But she was the first one to kind of abandon Patricia, and she was the most resistant. That when they all started kind of coming back together again, she was the most resistant.
Yeah.
But when she showed up at the end, oh my God, woman took charge. And that, okay, so I didn't find a lot funny, humorous,
No.
but at that part, they had killed James. Well, they had dismembered
him with
alive.
yes, hunting
He
knife
didn't
and
die.
a saw, like
Yeah.
a handsaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he didn't die.
Well, because they didn't do it right. If they would have watched an episode of Supernatural, everyone knows that you have to cut off the head to kill a vampire.
They did cut his head off.
No,
though.
they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No.
No. They did. Yes,
When?
they did.
No, they did
When
not.
they dismembered him, yes, they cut his head off.
Well, okay. Well, maybe
They did. Remember, because they nailed the 2 penny nails into his eyes, because that's what Miss Mary had told them to do.
Yes. Okay. Well, at that point,
And then they
but,
cut
you
his
know,
head
like,
off.
But when
he
they
still
first
was
brought
alive.
him down, Patricia. No, who was it? That
Kitty.
Kitty.
Kitty
Yeah.
wrestled him. Like, damn.
Yeah, and then put the knife right into his spine, like in his neck.
Yeah. Basically kind of pinned him to the floor.
Yep. With
I
a
mean,
big
she-
hunting knife. That woman took
She
him
brought it down.
She did. She went WWE on his ass.
She did.
Like, oh my
I was
gosh.
really expecting something like that her kid was a wrestler in school and
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
like
But,
practiced with him or something.
She always seemed like she was going to be one of those girls who would be able to do that, you know.
I don't know. She was
Me.
awful skittish about everything
Oh
beforehand.
no, she always seemed like she was one tough cookie to me. Like
I
that,
know.
if anyone was gonna handle something, it was gonna be Kitty. That was my
Well,
thought.
Remember when Patricia wanted to go out the first time to see Mrs. Green after Miss Mary died? And
Yeah, she
got
didn't
Kitty.
really want to.
she did not want to go. She
I
was
think
real
that was-
skittish.
I think that was more of a. She didn't like how it would look, and she also didn't maybe want
Well.
to associate really with
Well, no,
those
I think
people.
so too.
I don't think it was. She was like super scared.
Yeah.
I think it was more of an association and how it would look
Yeah.
on the outside. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I
me
liked
too.
Kitty. Kitty was probably my favorite out of the book club women
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I liked her because she.
Yeah. Pulled off his head with a loud pop.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Don't
they
know
did,
how
but
I
it
missed
didn't
that.
kill him. He was still moving.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
it would work with
Anyway,
it. He
yeah.
wasn't like a traditional vampire, so I suppose maybe.
yeah, no. Anyway, he was blood everywhere. They had tried. So they like dismembered him in the bathtub, and they tried to put the tarp down and everything. But then when Grace showed up, they all like trooped out to see what was going on, and of course have white carpets, so they were trooping blood
Yeah.
everywhere.
Also, who has white carpets in their house?
I know.
Why would someone put white carpet in their house? Like, I want to. If you have white carpet, tell me why. Because
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
day 2, I know for sure if I had white carpet in my house, it would not be white anymore.
No,
It would be gray or brown. Like, you know, like
Yeah, I know. I would never have white carpet. in my house.
no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't do carpet all
Mm-mm.
really anymore.
So they were basically the ladies had time to do all of this because there was a football game on,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew everybody. It was a big football game.
It was Clemson,
Clemson and
South Carolina. That doesn't sound.
it was
correct to me.
Alabama. Clemson was South Carolina.
I don't.
Anyway, it was a big football game, college football game. So they knew everybody would be watching the game in their neighborhood. They'd be all at parties or what have you. And so that's when they planned to do this. So they knew they had the time frame of the game to get this done. And it wasn't going according to plan, of course. And so right at the end, they mess everywhere. They didn't know how they were going to get cleaned up and then transport James's body somewhere. And in comes Grace. And she starts giving orders, and this is how it's going to be. And then at the end, it's Grace and Mrs. Green, and they're going to clean up. And Grace says, I think between the two of us, we have 80 years worth of experience cleaning houses. I think we can get this done. And they're like comparing how they're going to
get how to get the bloodstains out of
blood out. And
which honestly, I want to try it.
Yeah.
Some of their methods. Like I was over there taking notes of like how to get this stuff out.
Grace says she'd go for the peroxide, which is what I use to get blood out of stuff. And Mrs. Green goes, I prefer ammonia. Grace goes, hot water. And Mrs. Green says, no, cold. Interesting.
That was a really good scene. I liked that one.
It was. I liked those two together. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I liked Grace quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
She came through in the end.
She did. I'm glad that she finally came around helping them. But yeah.
It was really good. And that was after that, because Patricia knew the only way that they could get at him, because he had said basically he wanted to take over her family. He wanted to kill Carter and step in. Mm-hmm. And so the whole thing was, she kept telling him, I need to think about this. I need to think about it. I don't think she would have been unhappy to see Carter.
Exactly. That's what I like. When he offered this, is like, I'll kill Carter and step in. I'm just like, do it. I'm on James's side right now. Like, if you kill him, I'm not going to be upset.
Carter. Mm-hmm. So she goes. She goes to him and says, okay. So basically, and that whole scene was pretty good too. And basically, he like humiliated her. And she played right into it. I mean, she gave him exactly what he wanted, and she got what she wanted. So part of the whole plan was for him to feed off of her so that would get the ladies could come in and attack him while he was doing that. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, she was sick. And she spent 2 days. Grace took her home. And she spent like 2-3 days at Grace's house recovering. And then Carter came in, and being all Carter, basically he was wanting to know where James was, and just like he disappeared.
His wife has been sick for like 3 days, not home with another friend, and his first thing's like, where's James, Patricia?
Yeah,
what'd you do to James, Patricia?
And Patricia's trying to like talk about the kids, because at this point they had put Corey in a rehab because Patricia basically told Carter that Corey's on drugs. Mm-hmm. And so they took her to a rehab. And so she's like, how's Corey? Because they just killed James. So Corey's probably sick too. And he's just like going on about James. And at that point, she's just watching him pace the room. And she's Carter, I want a divorce. It's like, good job, girl.
Yeah, it's about dang time.
You know what? Go away. Just go away. He couldn't believe it. Nothing went his way after that, and he couldn't believe it. It was funny as all hell.
It was amazing. I really love that part
too. That was good.
I guess if you can't die, at least getting divorced is good enough.
Yeah. And I do wish at the end it had been a little more detailed. It was more like a summary from Patricia. Mm-hmm. This is the way things are going. So I do wish that had been a little more detailed to talk about, like, especially like some of the other book club members, because it really didn't go into a lot of detail.
Yeah, because like with James gone, then Leland, was that Kitty's husband? Whichever one was it?
Leland was Mary Ellen's husband.
Whichever one had real estate.
No, Leland was Slick's husband.
Because Kitty's husband was Horse. They had a son named Pony.
Yes.
Her nickname Pony, I guess, but.
Yeah, they're the ones that had the old plantation that they were trying to farm, and it wasn't going well.
Seaweed or something.
Yeah.
But, yeah, whichever one had all of the real estate and stuff that James had bought into, they all had invested into Gracious K.
Yeah, which was a housing development that was being put over the top of 6 Mile. So, like, he goes in and he feeds off the children to the point where people are leaving, and then he basically takes over as developer and is wiping it out to build this new housing development out there.
Yeah. But it pretty much happened kind of like how Miss Mary said it would, how it happened before with her dad. It's like, oh, Hoyt Pickens, which was James Harris back when Miss Mary was a little girl, he came into town and made everyone invest all of their money into whatever big scheme he had going, and then he left town and left them all
took off with the money.
So it worked out that way. Although it wasn't as early as James had intended.
Yeah, she kept saying, you know, he'll just eat and eat and eat until he's eaten everything. Just take and take. And yeah, that's what he was on track to do. But yeah, when he disappeared, of course, all of a sudden people are finding out there's a bunch of cash missing out of the deal or whatever it was, their investment. There was a bunch of cash missing, and everybody's coming back on Leland to find out where the money was. And Leland ended up declaring bankruptcy. Slick had died, so at least Slick didn't have to suffer through that, but because the way she was infected by James, it was basically that he was turning her into what he was, and then when she died, she would come back as what he was. And so when she knew what was going to happen, she told Patricia that she wanted to be cremated. She wanted to change her will so she'd be cremated. Yeah. So
I guess.
So Slick can
pretty much be killed with fire.
Yeah. Slick died. Leland declared bankruptcy. I think Kitty and Horace, they didn't lose the farm, but they had to sell a bunch of it off because Horace had invested all their money and then basically gambled away. When they would get like payouts, because they all made a lot of money off of all this. And so, but Horace would drink and gamble their money away. So I think Grace and Bennett probably came out. They didn't really talk about them. They lost some money, but I think Grace was okay. Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about
that. Just that after the divorce, Grace gave Patricia some money.
So that way she would have. What did she say? Her mom said that a woman always needs to have her own.
Woman should always have some of her own money, just in case. I'm like, your mother is smart.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all kind of fell apart, and Patricia did move out and took the kids with her, and
guarantee she was 10 times happier than she had been with Carter.
Yeah, and I was expecting there to be like Carter, everything fell apart for him, and he had to, because he was like, I'm keeping the house and the beach house. And I was expecting it to come around saying he lost them both.
I wish it would have. I wish it would have said that, or something like he got demoted at work or something. Like he started drinking and went off the deep end. Like I wanted something bad to happen to him. I don't think he. Yeah. I think he got off pretty easy. So
that computer's doing. Yeah, it is doing weird things. Okay. No, maybe. Hey,
there we go.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I was hoping Carter would get it worse than he did, but whatever.
Karma will find him eventually.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I really did think this story was well put together.
I will agree with that. I didn't find a whole lot of plot holes.
No.
For me. I enjoyed the writing, but I like Grady Hendrix writing. Even if I don't like the story itself, I've always enjoyed it. And it's really easy to read his books.
It is.
Yeah. I read this book in a day and a half, I think. So
it took me 2 days.
It's just super easy to just sit down and read it. If I'm not enjoying the story, it's just the writing flows really well.
It does, and it's the same for the other books too. It was never about his writing.
No, like he's a great writer. It's just
the story was like, huh? But it really felt like in this book that he had a point to make, and it wasn't like in your face, But in the I don't know if it's in yours too, probably was, but in the very beginning with like his acknowledgments and author's note and stuff, and at the very end it said basically the story he wanted to tell was like his mom taking on Dracula. Because his mom, he grew up in this area. And so his mom had been like Patricia and the other book club ladies. And so, had said, never thought they got enough credit. They were badasses and in what they did. And that he's like, if my mom took on Dracula, what would that look like?
Right, yeah.
And I think that's while he talked about, in that author's note saying that, by saying they were badasses. And I think he had a point to make with this book that I never really got that from his other books that I've read. I've only read 2 other ones, but I never really did feel like he had. It was more like
there wasn't
campy
really
horror.
Reason. Yeah, like this book he wrote for a reason.
Yeah.
The other books he wrote for fun.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, he had a point to make. He had there was a lot of that I felt was satire regarding the lifestyle and of these people and the expectations of the community and the way that Black people were treated in this time in this community and the way women were treated.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was even that long ago. Like it was late 80s to mid 90s.
Early 90s with this book. But I just, the social commentary I don't think was present in his other books, and maybe that's why I enjoyed this one more. But it wasn't like shoved in your face. There was never any point where you felt like the author was coming in to say, this is wrong. But it was so over the top that it was satire. It was obvious that it was satire and making fun of what these men were doing.
Right.
And making fun of, and James being a vampire was very symbolic too. It really was about the way, especially with, racial things, that how nobody did care what happened to these Black kids and how, the society would just suck these Black people dry and their communities just suck them dry. And so, it was no coincidence that he chose a vampire to be preying on the Black community. Anyway, I just thought it was well done. I like that part. I think he did a good job of handling that commentary that I think he wanted to make. I'm pretty sure it was intentional.
Yeah.
Very intentional.
I was going to say, it'd be hard to argue that it wasn't intentional with how obvious it was.
Yeah, you would think so. I don't know. I just never felt like that was present in the other 2 books that I read, so I think maybe that's why I like this one a little more. So. And maybe why it was a little more cohesive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
I still am. I was just like a little bit disappointed by the book, and I think that's why I didn't enjoy it as much. Like the whole social commentary thing is great, but that's not really my style. Like I like the campy, the fun books like that.
I really did want. I wanted this book club ladies to turn into like vampire slayers.
Yes, I wanted badly.
I wanted I wanted like Real Housewives meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
That is what I wanted to read. I really did. If anybody knows of a book like that,
let us know.
Let us know, because that is what I wanted to read. This was very...
It was intense.
Yeah.
In a, different way.
I was... Yeah. I'm just thinking, everything that happened with Patricia, her fall, kind of fall from grace there, kind of towards the middle of the book. Her, that was all not what I was expecting to happen at all. At all.
No, and the way that
it was hard to read.
The way that her book club turned on her too.
Oh yeah.
And how hard it was for her to try and convince them that there was an issue.
Yeah.
That was one part that was a little bit difficult for me to believe, just because they all are obviously true crime enthusiasts. At this point, I could call them that because that's what they love to read about.
Mm-hmm.
And Grace herself is one who's always watching for something weird happening in the neighborhood. She sees a vehicle she doesn't recognize, she provides a license plate number.
Yeah.
And so it was just weird for me that they were so reluctant to admit that there might actually be an issue in their community. Because Patricia was bringing up a lot of good points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they weren't just like crazy ramblings.
No.
Like, they were actual things that she could prove or had, like, someone to back up her story. And so for them to just be like, oh, there's nothing wrong. And they didn't know James all that well either.
No, they had met him.
They met him once at one of their book club meetings. But aside from that, I mean, it just, none of them were sitting there being like, you know what? Yeah, that is kind of strange. It was more of just like, no, they don't see that ever happening.
Yeah.
And so that was weird to me that not one of them like really tried to back, like, it took so much to try and get them on her side when they're also supposed to be like friends, like close friends.
Yeah, I just took that to be, I mean, everybody, all of them were pretty much, products of their environment.
Yeah.
And Patricia had been the one who was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Patricia was the one that went in and found Miss Mary and had to clean all that up and found Mrs. Green. Patricia had all that happen to her. So none of the others had anything like that happen to them. So I think for Patricia, it was much more like knocking her upside the head in her face. And the rest of them were like, oh, not in our neighborhood. And it's terrible what happened to you. Are you sure you're not just
like a trauma response?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So because the lady that attacked Patricia was James's aunt. Great aunt. So they thought maybe she was just kind of
trying to find someone to blame for all of that.
Yeah.
Because she ended up dying. The great aunt did.
The great aunt did.
So,
but I think there was a lot of that doesn't happen in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
We live in a good neighborhood. And I think Grace especially, I think that's one of the reasons she was so hard to convince was because, that's not what we do. That's not who we are.
Well, it was a very, very close community. Mm-hmm. Like, it was very uncommon for people to lock their doors at night and stuff like that. Like, very proper sort of a community that you never really had anything to worry about.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I got that. And I completely understood why it all fell apart when the husband showed up and all of a sudden here, these are housewives and mothers. And, most of them, I think, kind of shared Patricia's, they bought into, we are just, our husbands know better than we do. And we just need to back off. We don't want to lose our place in society. We don't want to lose our families. And, the guys were coming in saying, do you know what you're going to do to our reputations and how, all of this stuff. And they caved.
Right. Well, I mean, when you have to, put up with that for so long, eventually you're going to start to believe their bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a fact of it.
And I don't think Grace believed the bullshit so much as that was who she was. Yeah. Like, literally, she was
raised that way.
And she never saw herself as inferior because that's what she did. She was proud of it. Mm-hmm. And she did not want to change her life at all. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think the others were they just caved to their husbands, which, I mean, Grace kind of did too, but yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I could see why they caved.
Yeah, I see why they've caved. I just couldn't get behind them initially not wanting to be on Patricia's side.
Well, and I think too, because the reason that Patricia was coming to them is it was the black kids. She was worried about children that were not their children.
Right.
Which is, again, the commentary on, nothing's going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because of that. So I think that was part of it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I gotta talk about it because Nick, I was talking about this book with him a little bit, and I was telling him about the scene in the attic.
Oof.
Yeah, because that was a point. There were a couple points in this book where I had to either stop what I was doing or put the book down because, like, most of the time I was reading this at lunch. So
that would be rough.
Yeah, the scene where Miss Mary tried to spit on James and all of that happened. I was literally eating like a chicken enchilada kolache, and I just was like, we're gonna just
let's just not read that right now.
No,
I can see
that.
I
was
can
rough.
see that.
But yeah, the attic scene when Patricia was up hiding in the attic from James. She had
in James's attic.
Yeah. She broke into his house to go and try and find some type of hard evidence to convince the girls of book club and anyone else that James is trouble. He's dangerous and we need to get him out of here.
She had Mrs. Green on her side. Mrs. Green was all in on this. And this was the point, she had gone slick because Slick was very religious. And so in the beginning, Slick had been on her side because she was like, I've been waiting for God to show me my purpose. Mm-hmm. And so this time around, she went to Slick. And she had a photograph. Miss Mary had always been trying to find this photograph of Hoyt. Mm-hmm. And she got the photograph. Mrs. Green had all these clippings, and she took it to Slick. And she said, you look at all this, and if you think I'm crazy still, I'll drop it. Well, Slick said that she would help. Well, her idea of helping was to call James and accuse him and say that Mrs. Green and Patricia are in your house, and if you're the best thing you can do is never come back.
Yeah, because they're going to find whatever they need to find.
And that's why he attacked Slick, too.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's why they were in the attic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's up there looking through all of the stuff that's there, which was all of James's great aunt's stuff, pretty much, that had been in the house before. He just shoved it up into the attic. And also there was a suitcase with a dead body in it. So that was great. Well, James comes home from the club that he was at. He was on a trip.
He had been on a trip. They came home because Slick called him.
Yeah, so he comes home unexpectedly, and so Patricia has to hide somewhere in the attic, but there's not a lot of places to hide from. And then she spots on the floor like this huge pile of clothes that are just covered in dust and poison and like whatever, like cockroach poison and stuff like that. And so her great idea is that she's going to crawl underneath inside of this pile of clothes and hide from James. I about through this, like I think this is one of the only times in the book I've been so like disturbed while reading it that I was like this, just like trying to read it because it was disgusting. All of these spiders,
it was,
and the centipedes and the cockroach that started going into her ear. No.
Yeah.
No.
And the whole time, James is like, Patricia, I know you're here. And she's like trying not to move, not to make sounds.
And it just kept going about how like, and you could feel the cockroach going deeper and deeper, and his wings are fluttering, and it's just touching the inside of my ear canal. It's like I'm nearly to my brain. If it goes any deeper, I'm not going to be able to get it out. And I'm like, no, I found a cockroach in my house. I don't need to be reading this.
They are icky.
It was the worst scene in the whole book. It's one of the worst scenes that I've ever read. Like,
really?
Disturbing. Yeah, disturbing wise. Like, it takes a lot to, like, I can handle all of the blood, the gore. I can handle all of it. But you start talking about bugs and bugs crawling where they shouldn't be crawling. Okay. I'm out. It's one of my biggest fears is to have a bug crawl in my ear or a spider or whatever, lay eggs, and then boom. That was on a show I watched somewhere. Like, some dude, it was like Monsters Inside Me or whatever, one of those shows, and he went to the hospital because he kept hearing something like scratching. Yeah. And no one could figure out what it was. No one knew. He went to multiple doctors and specialists and no one saw nothing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of these eggs from these bugs hatched, and they're just coming out everywhere.
Well, at least they left.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so my biggest gross out scene in the book, though, was the rats.
Really?
Yes, it was the rats. So in the very, very beginning of the book, they lived next to a canal kind of thing. And so they kept talking about how rats were a problem. And they'd see them in the yard or whatever. Well, so after James had come over for dinner, of course, she invited him in. And Miss Mary was still alive. And Miss Mary kept like screaming at James because she knew he was Hoyt. But she had Alzheimer's. That's why she was living with them. And Mrs. Green was her nurse. So that's how they knew Mrs. Green. And she was just like going nuts. Anyway, James knew what was going on. And so there was this, they had gone, Carter and Patricia had gone to a party. And I don't know, the kids were out somewhere else. So it's just Mrs. Green and Mary, or Miss Mary. And there was this invasion of rats. And like literally, Miss Mary was eaten to death by a horde of stinking rats. And then they talked. Miss Green got away, and she ended up having to barricade herself in the bathroom and then sit on the toilet because they were trying to come up the toilet.
Yeah. And before she had ran into the bathroom, Mrs. Green was talking about how, was it her sister someone had a rat that chewed into her stomach.
When they were little girls and they were sharing a bed, she woke up to her sister screaming, and a rat had latched on and was like eating her belly button.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Green was having like PTSD.
And I'm sure James probably knew this and tried to make the rats do it, because that's what sent her into the bathroom, because the rat climbed up onto her and started trying to eat its way in.
Latched onto her belly button.
Yep. And so she's just like, I'm sorry, Miss Mary, but I'm out, like.
Poor puppy.
Yeah, ragtag. But he made it.
He survived.
Somehow.
He survived.
I don't know how. He was a good dog.
He was a good dog. He was trying to get at those rats.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then Grace comes home, or Patricia. I don't think Carter was with her. Oh, he went to work, didn't he?
I think he went straight from
So work. It was just Grace. Patricia. And so Patricia walks in on this, and there's like the smell, and
there's like urine and dirt and everything, blood, like all over the place.
And they had totally trashed that. I mean, we're talking like a tidal wave of rats.
The floor is completely black with rats.
So they're gone by the time Patricia comes, but except for the dead ones that Ragtag managed to kill. But that was my gross out. Okay. We live in an old farmhouse that's about 120 years old. So, critters gonna get in. And I was about 10 years ago, I think, we had an invasion of mice. I mean, like literally, I would set traps and we would catch a dozen mice overnight. It was disgusting. I hate mice. I hate them. So yeah, thinking about my house being covered in rats.
It's really funny that our gross out scenes have to do with stuff we dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, well, you got mice, I got cockroaches. Like, yeah. That's funny.
Oh, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting. And there is a smell. That mouse smell. Oh. It's gross. It's so gross. Yeah. I wasn't eating when I read that scene. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was. That scene didn't bother me.
It was dark out. It was like 10 o'clock at night. There was like, oh. Now I have to go to bed. He is very good. I will say that. He's very good with the
painting a picture.
The horror.
Oh, yes.
And I thought that with the other two also. And the suspense.
Yeah.
The suspense. I mean, reading up to the point where Patricia got sent to the mental hospital, I was just like, my stomach was just curdling because I knew what was coming. I knew she was sticking her neck out and it was going to get cut. And oh, I hate that. So I knew. So he was really good at that. And then the end, when they basically go in and attack him and like literally he's talking to them while they're dismembering him. And that whole end scene was just really good. Really good. I mean,
that's what I wanted, the whole book.
From Kitty to Grace to Mrs. Green. Yes, exactly. That's what I wanted to. But anyway, I did enjoy it. I'm surprised, but I did. I didn't think I was going to. Going in,
I didn't think you would either.
I did.
Like I said, I thought I was expecting to come into this and you being like, "This book was dumb. It's a 1 star."
I didn't even give my best friend's exorcism 1 star.
That's true.
I still gave it 3.
That's true.
I think. Yeah, I did.
That's true. But still, I thought you were gonna say it was dumb. That you didn't like it. So
I did. I really did.
Well, I'm good. Good. I am glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that this wasn't a letdown. Like, you didn't hate it.
Mm-hmm. But again, if anybody knows the kind of book that
we
wanted, like a bunch of, Southern belles turning vampire slayers and camp and
because if not, otherwise we're gonna have to write one ourselves. And that's
that may not be a good. That would not be a good time. I feel like there should be a book out there already.
There should be.
Some Southern girl that smarts off about whatever.
I'm telling you, I really want to have a scene where the vampire just says something to a Southern woman and she's just like, "Oh, bless your heart." Like, I just want that scene so bad. Like, just something.
I'm going to knock you into next week.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what that campy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I want to do. So, literally, if you know, please tell me because that's what I want to read.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun. Anyway.
We could talk about the Southern women going to the grocery store, got their buggies full of garlic.
Going to the Walmarts.
To the Walmarts. Got my buggy.
Getting the garlic.
Yeah.
Going to the home store. Get their wooden stakes.
Buc-ee's. Is that what they have in the store? Buc-ee's or Boosie's, whatever it's called. Buc-ee's.
It's either the Walmart or the Piggly Wiggly.
Oh yeah, the Piggly Wiggly. I forgot about the Piggly Wiggly.
I mean, kind of a cross between this and Sweet Home Alabama.
Yes. That's what I want. Someone find it for me.
Please. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have for this one.
What did Nick think of you talking when you were talking about that scene? You said you were talking to Nick about it.
He just pretty much shook his head, just like, that's just weird.
Well, yeah.
So like, yeah. I don't know.
It is weird. What can you say?
That's what I like.
Yep.
He knows what he's getting himself into.
You better by now.
Yeah. I've given him plenty of opportunities to find out.
You better.
Yeah.
He's anything else?
I don't think so. Like I said, I forgot my notes at home, so I'm sure that there's something that I'm forgetting.
I don't think.
Some of us don't.
I wish I had though, because there was a point somewhere in the beginning that, I mean, like I said, there was no Southernisms in this book. I mean,
that was disappointing to me as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that type of humor was not what this book was about.
Yeah.
But there was something in the very beginning, or close to the beginning, that was almost there. And I meant to go back and tag it, and then I forgot.
Yeah. There was a really funny quote. There was a couple funny quotes, like in the beginning, that I liked, especially one from, I think it was, they were all sitting around talking about their kids or something, and like, don't you want to spend or don't you like your kids or whatever. So like Kitty was like something about how like, honey, nobody likes their kids. I think it's on page. Let me see. My memory's coming back to me. Page 18. I don't know why that's sticking in my brain.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. No. Oh no, this is about her. It was talking about Patricia's soul decided it was no fool and ascended into the afterlife, leaving her at the mercy of the women surrounding her. I like that quote a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yes. Anyway. It made me giggle.
There was a couple places that I did giggle in this, and it definitely towards the end when Mrs. Green and Grace are discussing cleaning.
Best way to clean up blood.
The best way to clean up the bloody massacre and to get blood out of a white carpet, and I did.
That was awesome.
Just because it was just so deadpan, so serious. Just, oh, interesting. Like, I really like Grace a lot anyway, so. Yeah. And Mrs. Green. Mrs. Green was really kick-ass.
Yeah, she was no nonsense girl. I liked her.
I did too. It was really good. So. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's
another Grady Hendrix book down.
I know.
Kelly's gonna read Horror Store next.
I'm not sure about that. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
I'll get it.
I mean, I had reason I wanted to read this one because of what we thought it was going to be, and I really wanted to read that story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not so much a fan that I'm really like, yeah, bring it on. If he comes out with another story that I think I'll like, then maybe, but I'm not going to be drawn in just because of him as a writer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see.
All right. What's our next book?
Our next one, I think, is Little Dragon. Oh, Little Dragon. Okay. Gods of Jaden's Shadow. And I think if anybody had just watched when we picked the books, we switched these. We switched this one and this one. We should have read this one last month.
Oh.
We did switch them. Not that that matters. I mean, nobody cares, right? But anyway, I should have been able to read this 2 months earlier. Really looking forward to this one.
Because she's the same one that wrote Mexican Gothic.
Mexican Gothic. Yes.
Yeah. Amazing book.
Yeah.
You want to talk about disturbing
and weird.
You're never going to look at mushrooms the same again.
Mm-mm. And if you want to warm up to that book, read T. Kingfisher's
What Moves the Dead?
Yeah, What Moves the Dead. If you want to warm up to Garcia, I would read that one first and then Garcia. But yeah, it's Moreno Garcia. Sylvia Moreno Garcia. And I was thinking that I'd switched her last name wrong. But okay, anyway, I did not. So anyway, this is our July book.
Yeah.
So we will be
August, first Sunday.
First Sunday in August.
3-ish o'clock.
Yes, 3-ish o'clock. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. It's set in the 1930s, I think.
Oh, so like Flapper Girls.
Yes, 20s or 30s. I think they just call it the Jazz Age, which is basically
anywhere between the 20s to the 40s. So.
The Art Deco cover kind of gives you a hint, but it's a girl that sets free a kind of, I think, an old Mayan god, and then has to deal with him. So I'm looking forward to this one. Yes, I have been looking forward to this one since January. I really want to read this book, really bad. So,
well, time has come.
It has come. This is next. So, join us. We'll be back.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we hope that you enjoyed listening to us discuss the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. As always, if you have any thoughts or comments that you want to make, leave them for us down below in the comment section of the video, or you could also hit us up on Instagram. I have those linked in the description as well. And if you did enjoy, give the video a thumbs up. It's free to do and helps us out a lot. And also hit the red subscribe button if you're not already subscribed.
What you waiting for?
Yeah, because we have amazing book videos on here.
We do.
They go up every Sunday.
They do. Mostly.
98% of the time,
Mostly.
they go up on
On
Sundays.
Yes.
Aside from when there's technical difficulties. But you know what? I am only human, okay?
They
But anyway,
do.
There's a lot
They
of
do.
great book content already on the channel, so if I do post a day late, there's other
Yeah.
things you can watch.
And it's not just book discussions, too. We do kind of recommendation videos, and we do a monthly wrap-up, you know, like once a month,
Yep.
which is why it's a monthly wrap-up.
Yeah. I don't know. We have a lot of different like book-related videos.
We do.
We also have Triple B, Books, Beverages, and
We
Besties.
do, where we go visit big stores and have treats.
Yeah,
And
indie
that's fun to
bookstores,
do.
like not
Yeah,
big
indie
chains.
bookstores.
So
Yep.
just keeping it local.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And was it last week's video? We did that? I think it was.
I think
wasn't
so.
it?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was Trainwreck that turned out awesome. So
Yeah. So go check out that video because
I'm not sure that comparison was
it started out looking like it was going to be a train wreck,
and then
and then
yeah,
it didn't.
it did. Okay, yeah, whatever. Okay.
You know what we meant.
Anyway,
So,
yes, and
yeah.
also if you are interested in more than just book stuff, and I'm going to end up saying stuff a lot now. Stoof. If you're interested in more than just books, Amy also has a lot of other content on her channel. She is doing cleaning videos right now where she's deep cleaning her entire house. And so there's a whole series of videos on that, including a couple weeks ago where we deep cleaned our bookshelves.
Yeah.
She also has like shopping hauls and decorating videos, and the kitties are always around.
Yeah. The fat cats no one can believe are actually cats because they're so big.
The fat cats.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you like more than just book stuff, you can find all kinds of other stuff on Amy's channel as well. And she's got a blog too, where it has all kinds of other stuff. So you can find any kind of stuff that you might want.
It's a little something for everybody.
That's right. So go check it out.
I'll have it linked down in the description as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That is it.
that is it.
That's all for right now.
That's all, folks. Can't do the thing.
So that's what this.
When in doubt, finger guns. Anyway, okay, we gotta end it there because it's about to get crazy.
Yeah.
So,
no more.
Yeah, I'm Amy.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the
Everyday Epic Book Club.
See y'all in the next one.
Bye.